Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we are, 2018, first episode of the Brocast. And this one's going to be a bit of a different podcast. I'm a solo bro today. I'm on my own. I felt like this podcast would be better on my own. But I would love to have spoken about this particular topic in great length. And that is depression. Now, depression is such a weird thing for us to go through, and everyone goes through it in life, and it's classed as a mental disorder, and it basically is the loss of mood. Depressed mood is the loss of interest or pleasure, feelings of guilt, self-worth, disturbed sleep, appetite, low energy, and poor concentration, according to the mentalhealth.org. And it's different from feeling down or sad. I need to make that very, very clear to people. When you're sad, you experience an emotion. You experience a great deal of empathy as well. Like, empathy is something that you have when you are sad. You're feeling for something. Depression, you're feeling low about yourself, and I feel from my experiences, I'm not sad because you could be happy, but you have those depressed feelings still locked away inside you, and when you stop and think about stuff, it's you feel responsible for everything. You feel responsible for everything that's gone wrong, even if it's not your fault. That's the biggest thing. Like, here's an example of something that happened to me. Was I would get into I have a long-standing partner for 4 years now, Megan. I've mentioned her on previous videos on another channel, on my It's Jimbo channel, but it's the first time we're talking about her on JT Productions. Probably talked about her on the podcast, but anyway, we'd have like a small argument and something like that, but I would take the brunt of the blame. And I would feel responsible for us fighting, and I would feel responsible for everything that was going wrong in our relationship at that period of time. Now, to give you a bit of backstory, I was suffering from a very low period, and it was kind of getting to a high point. It was like a high point of depression. I was getting towards that in January of 2014 was when I hit rock bottom. I fell all the way down, and that year was quite possibly the worst year of my life. From roller coastering up and down for at least months on end. I'd have a really couple of good days and then extremely bad ones. And sometimes people don't realize that's what you're going through until you you show emotion to those people that you would usually hide away. Like, for example, for a man like myself, crying is, as always, people have considered as a very, not girly thing, but a very feminine thing in the male community anyway. One second, I'm just taking a quick drink. But crying is not considered masculine. I'm sorry to say, it's not considered masculine to a lot of people. So when you emote, you have that expression, you're feeling immense sadness over something completely dumb. Or not dumb, I should say, like some event that happened that makes you just express that, emote that expression. I don't know why I'm saying emote all the time, but for me, it came to a point where my parents knew about it, my partner Megan knew about it, and even George, that was on the previous podcast, I got to a very, very low point, and I even expressed to him that I got to the point where I wanted to kill myself. And it shocked him. It shocked quite a lot of people that I told him that. And my biggest thing at the time that I had going on was basketball. And basketball was probably what brought me through that period. Like kept me focused on something, and that was very apparent for at least 2 years. I stopped playing basketball at one point, and I hit another depression spot, and that was because I wasn't having fun with it anymore. I felt like people that I was playing with, I couldn't trust, and I felt like I was stepping away from something I loved so much, and it was difficult, to say the least. So this is just kind of like my journey to where I am now. So we start off with the depression in January of 2014. We have a lot of bad months. February, March, April, May. I'm going to counselling. I got to the point where I wanted to kill myself, but that was a thing that happened to me. I acknowledge that. Go through to the rest of the year. 2015 wasn't as bad, but when I decided to stop playing and take a break for a year, I was going to say I'm going to take a break from basketball for a year, and I think I delved a lot more into gaming, into YouTube. I was doing YouTube at the time on my It's Jimbo channel, and that was something else that I was just completely wrapped up in, that just took my mind off things. Now, biggest problem that I have is I can get in my own head, and when I get in my own head, I start to cause problems. When I get in my own head, I overthink things. I don't think about things logically. I try and find an out to every situation that's a bad. And when you're in a depressive mindset, you tend to find a way out. Your way out is finding everything that's bad. You never seem to find the good in things. So, you'd say you never have any friends, or, your family didn't love you, or so many different factors that you would think about. And that was what hit me when I first had depression. I kind of got over it a little bit. I was on medication for a long, long period of time. I was on medication for 2.5 years, maybe 3 years. I've been sober now for 8 months of medication. And going from that, like being on medication and having a lower point, and then I had I built it back up, and then I was at college, a university course at my college. That's where it hit me, and I went really low again. I wanted to quit the course, and I'd gotten to a point where I was just really, really upset all the time, and I was really low all the time, but not as low as I'd been before, and it felt like progress. I got over that. And then when I decided to finish playing basketball for a period of time, that is another thing that really hit me as well, because basketball had been an integral part of my life since I was 13, 12, so nearly 10 years. I've been playing for about 8 years, you could say. I'd played until I was 20, and then stopped, and I'm now not playing anymore. I'd love to go back and play. I'm still involved in basketball. Like, I still watch it. I still enjoy playing like the NBA games, but I still watch the playoffs every year. I still keep up to date with what's going on in basketball with a lot of the players, different things like that. And after that point, something hit me, and it hit me in the sense of that wasn't as low as I'd ever felt leaving basketball. The lowest I'd ever felt was February 2014. I remember it vividly. No, not vividly, like in excruciating detail of how I felt, because I wanted to walk out in front of a car, crossing a light, in front of somebody that I loved, which was my partner. And, that was a very tough time in our relationship because we'd only been together 4 or 5 months, and I hit this batch of depression. So Meg is a rock. She stuck with me through that period, and we are here today, 4 years on. Nearly 4 years on. We've been together 4 years, but obviously 5 months in would be how long it was. And I think it was at a point where I'd hit a lot of different things kept coming out, and it was factors that really put me in a depressive state, and I'd never been at that state before. And then when I went to counselling, they helped me pick out moments in my life that were probably the reasons for all this repressed emotion that I suppressed. Yeah, suppressed them. Basically what I'd kept inside me for so long. And I always tell this story to a lot of different people. I think it's one of the main causes of my depression, and also one of the main reasons why I've got so many problems. Was bullying. Bullying is always something that, when you get bullied every single day, even if it's something stupid or it's something quite big, you're getting beaten up, it's mental, physical, whatever it is, that has a lasting effect on you. And being autistic, like myself, you can never really tell when people are being real and when people aren't. That's one of the hardest things as a person that's got autism. Your social awareness of people is very, very different to those that have I suppose you could quote unquote call normal. And I've kind of memed with this before with people that I talk to, but I say to people, everyone has autism or everyone has autistic traits. Everyone is somewhere on the spectrum. I'm very far on the spectrum, but I'm not so far on the spectrum that I don't understand how things work, how when I've grown up I've been able to deal with certain aspects of my autism that a lot of people don't quite get. You have your own coping mechanisms, and that is how I ended up going down the path of being depressed, was because I was so focused on what people thought. When I was thinking what people thought of me, that was really good English, but I was there. I was, always, every day was a decision. Like, are they being real with me, or are they actually taking the piss? Are they being sarcastic? That is a very thing that I struggled with for a long period of time. Then we move on to the next, probably the most traumatic period, which was I went through an intense amount of stress when I did my Gold Duke of Edinburgh Award. It's definitely made me a stronger person, doing the whole Duke of Edinburgh, but it's also made me a weaker person in the long haul, because of events that happened. So I spent a majority of the time on the trip on the bike. We were riding from John O'Groats to Land's End, cycling. We run overall the trip, I think it was 18 days, as I remember. We had 2 days to drive up to Glasgow, no, not Glasgow, to Land's End, to John O'Groats even. We drove up there, stayed overnight somewhere, and then drove up the next day after we'd stayed overnight. And then we went from the third day of us being there was when we started. So we went for 11 days. And 11 overall, we would have 14 days of cycling. And come the 11th day, tell me why I decided to take some milk out of a carton, put it in my breakfast cereal, and I thought for some reason it was the milk was a little bit bitty. There was like little bits in it, but I thought it was just the cereal that I had. Whether it was just, or someone hadn't washed the container that I had, or I hadn't washed it properly from the previous night, or something like that. Don't know what it was. Probably the milk, because I came down with a extreme amount of illness. I was stuck on the bike riding, very, very difficult. We got into, this was coming through Bristol, and I had to pull over to the side of the road. I lay down in a hunched up ball and then ended up just throwing up. And it was the worst period of time. I ended up having green sick. That's the level of what it was. And all I wanted was to go home. And I wanted someone to help me. I had to check my own bike. Everyone was probably tired. I don't know. I'm not being pissy. I'm not saying that I didn't want anyone to help me, like mummy me or anything like that. But it was just like, no one seemed to want to like take my bike or see if I was okay. It wasn't until I got to there was a car park nearby, a Tesco's car park, and I had some regular milk and some jelly babies and some like tablets to help give me back energy for throwing up. And I just threw up everything after I'd eaten loads of jelly babies. Now, at the time, I thought what he was doing was great. The guy that I was rooming with was Ryan. I was 17, nearly 18 at this point, and he was laying into me. He's like, no one's here now to help you. It's all down to you. You hold up everybody else. This is all down to you. Do you want to go home? Your mum's not here to help you now. And I think that really broke me. And it broke me not because he was shouting at me in that sense, but no one was helping me anyway. All I asked for was a little bit of help. And this is what I was saying to myself in my mind. And I mustered up the courage. I got back on the bike, and all I wanted to do was just cycle and get it out of the way, get it done with. And I think at this point we'd only done 20 miles. And we had another 60 to go. So, a long, long day of riding. And nobody... we got to the Bristol Bridge, I think it was. And everyone wanted to take a picture, like a big group photo. But I didn't want to. I wanted to just lie down. I didn't want to stop, and I had to go out by members of the group. But I was saying, come on, take this photo, stop being like a little pussy, and all that type of stuff. That didn't help either. So I'm slowly going on, cycling, and all I wanted for about 7 miles was a Sprite. Now, the way when you throw up is you are extremely dehydrated, and you need to raise your sugar levels and your water levels. And I just wanted some sugar in me to give me something. And I got to the point where I needed to get off the bike. And the bus that we had, that took this minibus that we had that took us along that way, would bring us supplies every so often, or check to see how the teams and that were when they were riding, how they were. And I felt getting on that bus was cheating myself on the trip, because previously on the trip we'd been riding for 110 plus miles. We started at 8 in the morning and we got to maybe 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and the signs that you see on a motorway, or signs that you see on the side of the road, it took until I was 5 meters away to be able to read what was going on. My vision was blurry. And for my safety, I had to get on the bus. And for that entire time, I was saying, sorry, I had to get on the bus. I didn't want to, I felt like I'm letting everybody down. And that's how I felt when I got on the minibus the second time. And then for 2 days, probably the worst 2 days of my entire life, I was sat on this bus shivering. I couldn't eat. I could barely even muster any sleep while I was lying on a back seat, and I felt like I was letting people down. I don't know what they were thinking at the time, because I was in my own head. But we get to the campsite on one of the nights, and we stopped there. I'm feeling a little bit better, but I even turned down like I couldn't even finish half of a foot-long Subway. I didn't even order a foot-long Subway. I ordered like a 6-inch. I couldn't even finish half of that. Now I usually engulf them. You know, that's something that I don't usually do. I don't pass up food, and that's usually what happens when I'm ill. So the night that we get there, we set up a lot of the campsite and stuff, and it was horrible because we got there, I wasn't feeling 100%, and we set up this campsite, but there was about 4 or 5 other people that got on the bus with me over the period of the day, but that was for physical reasons. One reason was 1 or 2 of them were really tired and they weren't able to, I don't know if they'd trained enough or anything like that. There was one girl, that she had a problem, like prior to the event, to the trip, she'd done something to her quad or a hamstring, like she'd torn something a little bit, or like the back of her quad, and also she was just healing from that, so she was very limited in the amount of miles that she could do per day, or like the pain threshold. There was a couple of people that had problems with their backs, like because they had previously had problems with riding before, or they just had problems with their backs in general. I had a big problem with my back, but I had to get through it because I'm so tall. Being on a bike in that position for so long does definitely do problems to your back. But anyway, and I was getting shouted at them because all I wanted to do was set up my own tent and go to sleep. But what the people that were on the bus would do is they'd get to the campsite, they would set up the other people's tents for when they got there, so then they could just go to sleep right there. So it wasn't like I wasn't doing anything while I was ill. But this particular day, I was dead. I was just dying, basically, and I just wanted to just to die. I got to that point, and I was like, I'm probably better off being here alone, and no one knows where I am, apart from obviously the people on the trip. But that's where it showed that I don't feel that the friends that I thought I had on the trip that would look out for me didn't do that. That's just from my personal personal opinion. Whether they felt that or not, although they had other things going on, like I don't blame them for that. It's just that time where you need someone that's not your family. You've been on this trip with these people for so long, and also previously had done silver with them and bronze with them. It was something like that. And with my camp buddy, who I'd known for quite a long time, he was obviously tired and he went straight to bed when he got in after he'd made food and stuff. I probably didn't eat on that night either. And then from there, I woke up and I wanted to sleep somewhere warm and not wet because all my stuff had gotten wet. So what I did was I got up because I had problems needing the toilet. Got up, went to the toilet in this random place that we'd camped with just this one singular house that we were nearby with this weird family. But I went and sat in the bathroom with my sleeping bag, waiting in case I needed to go to the toilet. Like I needed to rush into the toilet because ill and all that. And I turned over in the middle of the night and I put my hand on a dead hornet and I put it on its stinger. And the stinger woke me up, and I just felt like I was in intense pain. And that was that. Like I was like, "What the hell is this?" And then woke up about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. There's someone just saying, "Are you right, mate? How are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, sorry for lying in the bathroom all night. I'm really sorry." I got up. And the light, obviously they turned the light on, and there was no other way out of the bathroom. There was another door that was locked. The guy didn't have a key. I turned round because I'd forgotten something, walked back into the bathroom, and he was gone. And I think to this day I hallucinated that person, someone saying, "Are you right, mate? How you doing?" And that was the point where I was like, okay, I'm not getting back on the bus tomorrow, because I'm just devilishly ill. And I think it got to the final day of the trip, or the night before the final day, where I'd actually been able to eat. I had Imodium, which clogged up my butthole, and basically stopped me from shitting through the eye of a needle. Too much information, I'm sorry, you guys, but it's all in context of how I was feeling. And got to the point on the night where I was like, I want to go home as soon as I get to the finish line. Now, I'd spoken to this guy, Ryan, and he obviously heard me on the phone talking to my mom, because I was just at the point where I wanted to go home after this point. And I went to sleep, woke up, got my bike and everything ready, and we cycled to the finish line, past the finish line. But for me, everyone else had a great big elation. My family were cheering and applauding me. That I'd done this great achievement, but for me, I felt like I hadn't achieved anything. And I've felt that ever since. And I've always felt that because I've never done that trip fully, due to being ill, I never really completed my Gold Duke of Edinburgh. And I've always had that hanging over my head. It's always been suppressed. And when I got to the high point of my depression, that was one of the many reasons why I broke. I just broke down. There was another point in the trip as well at the end where we had 2 days staying in Land's End. I got up early in the morning, about 6 o'clock in the morning, and walked to the seaside. That was about a 5-10 minute walk from where we were staying. By myself, nobody knew where I was, and I sat on the edge of this cliff, like overlooking the sea. No, I didn't jump or anything, but it was like a path that would walk down. I just sat at the top of the path, looking out into the sea, thinking, wow, what an incredible achievement, kind of lying to myself. But then the first thing I did as I was walking back was I picked up my phone and I called one of my friends that I was spending a lot of time with at the time. And he picked up the phone. He was like, mate, it's great to speak to you, like one of the greatest things. And I was just like, mate, I can't wait to come home and talk to you. I just can't wait to be back, talking to you again, playing football, all these different things. Fortunately, he's actually moved up to Manchester, so I haven't really had a chance to talk to him as much. But that's what made, that's what helped me, was just wanting to go home. And that was the part of the trip that I think I enjoyed the most. But bringing it back around full circle to my depression, that was a point that was suppressed. And there was the bullying. And there was also a thing that was going on with my partner's best friend at the time. I won't go into too much detail. She was basically being an arse to me. And when you're in that state, you feel responsible when she was the one that was doing bad things towards me. And I broke. And that is why depression is such a big thing for me, because it felt like until I accepted a lot of different things, accepted the bullying, accepted this trip, that I would never go anywhere. Got to the lowest point, which is wanting to kill myself, and my counsellor at the time, a lovely lady that helped me. I only had her for a year, and then unfortunately she got made redundant. But she said to me that the only way's up from here. You're not going anywhere else. You're not going to kill yourself. The way up from here it's always positive. And I threw myself into my basketball. I threw myself into my relationship. I threw myself into gaming. And I've always thrown myself into something when I've got to that point of being depressed, at the lowest point I felt. And I always say that to people that are experiencing depression, is throw yourself into something that you love extremely. Try and do something that arguably is free and you don't have to pay much money for. Just throw yourself into a hobby. Throw yourself into your family, into your friends, into something. Because you'll find that the people that really matter to you will care about you as much as you do getting over your depression. And I've found that recently. These past 6 months, I've found that the friends that I've stuck by with, all the way from primary school, mainly one is my friend Ben. Shout out to Ben if you're listening to the podcast. I've recently been spending a lot of time with him, and I feel like I've connected with him a lot more as I've gotten older, as I've gotten more mature in thinking, and we just have a laugh now, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate close friends now more than wanting to please everybody. If I don't please everybody anymore, so what? And I've had a different attitude to things, because if no one cared about me like I do, like if I cared about people that didn't care about me, I just make myself more depressed again. And ever since I'd finished my meds and I started to connect with people a lot more, started to work, started to earn my own money, I was feeling like I feel great. Like this point right now is the greatest point I feel that my life has gotten to mentally in about 6 years. Maybe it's at 16. No. Since I was born. I'm going to have to say that. It's the best mental state I've been in. I feel focused. I feel energized. I feel... what's another great word, a big word that people use? Rejuvenated, you could say. You know? I feel... The only thing that I'm not as focused and I'm not as happy with is my job. I want to be in a better job, earning more money, but doing something that I enjoy rather than just doing a regular 9 to 5 job. And I'm not happy in the way I feel in my body, for example, physically. But that's something that's like an external thing that, you know, you can get over a period of time. So bringing it back round to the topic at hand is depression. The way that I say to people is just, you got to ride it through. There'll be a point which will make you think, that'll click, and you will say to yourself, wow, what is that, how easy it is to get over this? And that's how it felt. As soon as I found something to get over, and I found myself focused, I was able to get over my depression a lot quicker. Now, this is my story. This is how I have beaten depression. A lot of counselling, a lot of time being supportive with family and friends. That's another thing as well, is you need to not push everyone away, because that's what depression does. You want to push everyone away. You want to be in your own world. It's just you. You need to have people around you to support you, to take your mind off things, to give you advice, good or bad. They give you advice and they help you become stronger as a person, and also stronger as a relationship with them. And I owe that to George, who was on the podcast last, who's my best friend, and was one of my best friends. I owe it to my mum and dad. I owe it to my sister and my brother-in-law. And I also, most importantly, I owe it to my partner, Meg. She is one of the most supportive people I've ever met, and I wouldn't change her for the world. I am annoying, yes. I am also very, bossy, stubborn, just the same as what she is. And we're perfect for each other, but we obviously have our flaws. Everyone has their flaws, but she's one of the reasons why I got over my depression. And when I see her down and I see her experiencing stressful emotions and stuff, I do everything I can to support that. And if you can just find that one person in your life, it doesn't have to be many, just be one person, then I think that will help you that will help you overcome depression. So yeah, that's really why I wanted to come on the podcast today. I've been thinking about this topic for quite a while. Suicide is a different topic for me. I've never experienced anyone in my life that's committed suicide. I've had those thoughts, but I've never really, gone to that length. Otherwise, I wouldn't be making this video right now. But suicide and depression kind of go hand in hand sometimes, or a majority of the time when you see it. So I just wanted to talk about depression today. Sorry if you are watching this video and you are feeling down and this has kind of made it feel worse, or I just want to make this video to make you feel better and tell you that it's not the end of the world. There are things that you can do. You're not alone. If you're listening to this podcast, I'll tell you now, you're listening to me. You've got someone that can talk to you, through a virtual platform. So just leave a comment down in the comment section, just saying that either you enjoyed the video or, you've experienced some. Tell me your experiences of depression. If you've experienced it and you've overcome it, if you're going through a bad patch right now, like if you need advice or anything like that, I can just say to you that this is I can give you the best advice, which is be with your friends, put yourself into something, and go from and don't push everything away. Otherwise, you'll be in a very, very dark hole and a very, very dark place, and it's very, very hard to climb out of. So yeah. Thank you ever so much for watching this podcast or listening to this podcast. If you've had it on a little old listen. The next podcast, I don't know what it will be. Probably a bit more light-hearted, you could say. But I felt like I had to get this off my chest. So, thank you ever so much for listening, lending me your ears. Comment and subscribe, and tell me your experiences. And there'll be more videos on this channel very, very soon. So yeah, this has been Jimbo, James, or JT, however you want to go with it. And I'll see you next time on the Brocast.